Late-night gas station stops can seem routine, but sometimes they hide terrifying secrets. Tonight, we'll explore 5 real-life stories of chilling encounters, eerie disappearances, and unexplainable events that will send shivers down your spine. I worked the night shift at a small, isolated gas station in rural Tennessee. It was a quiet place where the occasional trucker would stop for coffee or fuel, but most nights were uneventful. Until one night around 11 p.m. The basement was where we stored supplies, paper towels, cleaning products, and boxes of chips. It always gave me the creeps. The air felt heavy, and the dim lighting made it worse. That night, I needed to grab some cleaning supplies, so I headed down the creaky stairs. As I reached the bottom, I heard a noise. It sounded like something falling, a soft thud on the far side of the basement. I froze. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving toward me. I spun around, heart pounding, and saw nothing. Panic set in, and I bolted upstairs, locking the basement door behind me. I rushed to the security cameras, hoping it was my imagination. What I saw chilled me to the bone. A man was standing in the basement, staring directly into the camera. He had an unsettling smile, his head tilted slightly to the side. I called the police immediately, but when they arrived and searched the basement, they found no one. The man was gone, and the door to the outside was locked from the inside. I couldn't explain it, and neither could they. For weeks after, I felt like I was being watched, even when the station was empty. It was late, around 1 a.m., and I was driving home after visiting a friend in another state. The stretch of road was desolate, with nothing but trees and darkness on either side. When my gas tank dipped below a quarter, I was relieved to see a small gas station up ahead, with a diner attached to it. I pulled in, filled my tank, and decided to grab a bite to eat. The diner had a 1950s charm, with checkered floors, red booths, and a friendly waitress who poured me coffee as soon as I sat down. I ordered a sandwich and chatted with the waitress, who seemed warm and genuine. After eating, I paid in cash and left. But about 10 minutes down the road, I realized I'd left my wallet on the counter. Frustrated, I turned back, but when I arrived, the gas station and diner were gone. In their place was an overgrown lot with an old, crumbling structure that looked abandoned for years. I was baffled. I got out of my car and walked up to the building. The windows were shattered, and the door was boarded up. Inside, it looked like no one had been there in decades. I double-checked my GPS, convinced I had the wrong location, but I hadn't. To this day, I can't explain what happened. I was working the overnight shift at a gas station just outside my town. It wasn't a dangerous area, but being a woman working alone at night made me cautious. Around 2 a.m., the store was quiet, and I was restocking shelves when the doorbell chimed. A man walked in. He was tall, with a bulky frame and a hood pulled low over his face. Something about him felt off. He wandered the aisles, not picking anything up, just watching me. I kept my eyes on him while pretending to organize the counter. After about 15 minutes of this, he finally approached the register. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear creeping in. He didn't respond, just stared at me with a small, unsettling grin. Then, without a word, he turned and left the store. Relieved, I locked the doors and watched him walk across the parking lot to a car parked in the shadows. But he didn't leave. He just sat there, his car idling. Minutes turned into an hour, and he still hadn't moved. I called my manager, who told me to stay inside and call the police. By the time the cops arrived, the car was gone. The officers told me to stay alert and let them know if he came back. That was the last time I worked the night shift. I was working the night shift at a gas station in a quiet town. It was around 2 a.m. when a man walked in. He seemed disoriented with unkempt hair and clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in days. He wandered the aisles without picking anything up, occasionally glancing at me with a vacant expression. After several minutes, he approached the counter and asked if he could use the restroom. Our policy was to not allow customers to use the employee restroom, especially during late hours, for safety reasons. I politely informed him of this, and he seemed to accept it, stepping back into the store. However, instead of leaving, he lingered, pacing back and forth, occasionally muttering to himself. I felt a growing sense of unease but tried to remain professional. Eventually, he left the store, and I breathed a sigh of relief. About an hour later, I stepped outside to take out the trash. As I rounded the corner, I was startled to see the same man standing by the side of the building, partially hidden in the shadows. He stared at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I quickly disposed of the trash and hurried back inside, locking the door behind me. For the rest of my shift, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I kept glancing at the security monitors, half expecting to see him lurking outside. Thankfully, he didn't return, but the experience left me shaken and more cautious during my night shifts. During one of my overnight shifts at a gas station, I noticed a car pull up to one of the pumps around 3 a.m. The driver didn't get out immediately, which wasn't entirely unusual. Some people take a moment to gather themselves before fueling up. However, after several minutes, the person still hadn't exited the vehicle. I decided to keep an eye on the car, glancing at it periodically between tasks. Eventually, the driver's side door opened slightly, but no one stepped out. The door remained ajar, and I couldn't see any movement inside. A sense of unease settled over me. After about 15 minutes, I saw a figure emerge from the shadows near the back of the building. It was a man dressed in dark clothing, hood pulled up, obscuring his face. He approached the car, opened the passenger door, and got in. Immediately, the car doors locked and the vehicle sped off, tires screeching. The whole incident was bizarre and left me feeling unsettled. I couldn't help but wonder if I had just witnessed something nefarious. The next day, I reported the incident to my manager and reviewed the security footage. But the low-quality video didn't reveal much more than what I had already seen. The experience made me more vigilant during my shifts, always aware of the potential dangers lurking in the late-night hours.